Hi everyone, welcome back to the Music Lounge. In today's video, I would like to try my hand at reviewing the Oberheim Xpander. Now, this particular unit is for sale, but before I let it go, I would like to document it in a Trogly-style review of a synthesizer. The reason being, if you put Oberheim Xpander in the search box up above in YouTube, you will find that the Xpander is not getting nearly as much attention, love, and recognition as it deserves. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, the Oberheim Xpander came out in 1984, right after the OB8. The OB8 was basically Oberheim's culmination of their OBX, OBXA, and OB8 line of muscle car type synthesizers. So, huge dual oscillator, 8-voice polys with an amazing sound. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that the Xpander is just another 80s dual oscillator, 6-voice poly with a fancy 80s style digital control layout. Far from it. Well, the thing is, if that were the case, if the Xpander was just an Oberheim dual oscillator 6-voice poly with the typical Oberheim sound and the coveted Oberheim VCF, that in and of itself would make it a desirable synth. But there's much more to it. So the problem with analog polys is how complex they are in terms of engineering. You have to create voice cards for every single voice that you have. So you have to have the 2 VCOs for every single voice. So for 6 voices, that is 12 VCOs. You need to have a VCF for every single voice. That is 6 VCFs. And you need a VCA, or 2 VCAs as in this case, so that is 6 or 12 VCAs. See where I'm going with this? The reason is that in order to achieve true polyphony, you need to do that. And then if you want to modulate things and control every parameter from a single knob, you have to interconnect all these voice cards so they act like one synthesizer. That is what makes the poly so complicated to make. And when you take a look at, for example, the Memory Moog at the time, or the Prophet 5, and when you look at other polys of that era, you will see that they are very limited in how much modulation they would offer. So when you look at your Prophet 5, you would have your 2 envelopes, one dedicated to the filter, one dedicated to the amplifier. You'd get 1 LFO and you get 3 polymods. That's it. Or look at the Memory Moog, same story. Or look at the OB8, same story. The key point is the complexity of the modulation or lack thereof in other synthesizers. And this is where the Oberheim Xpander takes the cake. Now, when you look at the modulation sources, there are actually 14 modulation sources. And basically every parameter on the Xpander can be modulated and assigned to a modulation source. So again, let me recap. There's 14 modulation sources and almost every parameter can be modulated. But it doesn't stop there. You typically have like 1, 2, maybe 3 envelopes at most. Well, the Oberheim Xpander gives you 5. Well, typically you'd have like 1, maybe 2 LFOs, Guess how many the Oberheim Xpander gives you? You guessed correctly, 5. Plus there's this thing called the ramp. A ramp is basically a simplified AR kind of envelope. It's shaped like a sawtooth. How many of those do we have? We have 4 of those. Plus it offers FM. Guess why? So with all these modulation possibilities, you have virtually a modular synthesizer under the hood. There's one limit, however. There can be at most 20 modulations per voice. So at most 120 modulations going on within the Xpander. Now let me put that into perspective. The Mini Moog has, if I'm counting correctly, offers 7 modulations. You have 3 ways to modulate the VCO, you have 3 ways to modulate the filter, and you have 1 to modulate the VCA. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's 7 for the Mini Moog. You can run at most 20 per voice. But that in and of itself would make the Oberheim Xpander an amazing poly. Now this is something that has been unheard of before, and it basically gives you a modular synthesizer inside this very convenient package. But it doesn't stop there. So if that were all that the Oberheim Xpander could do, so it's got the Oberheim sound, it's a 6-voice dual oscillator poly with the amazing multi-mode Oberheim filter, and on top it's basically a modular. You would say, okay, that alone makes it one of the top 5 synthesizers that were ever produced. However, it has got one amazing trick up its sleeve. So far, everything that I've been describing has been revolving around the single mode. However, you can switch it into the multi-mode. Now when you switch the Oberheim Xpander into multi-mode, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Why? Because the multi-mode turns the Xpander into virtually 6 independent monosynths. Each of those can be controlled via CV and gate. Each of them can be routed to an individual output or into the stereo output, whereby each voice can be panned individually. Now that is something that I consider unseen and unheard of even by today's standard. So let's take a look at this particular unit. So as you can see, this unit is in collector grade condition. So there's no blemishes, no scratches on the panels. The tuning routine checks out fine. It tunes all the voices, the pulse width modulation, the resonance, the VCF, and the VCA. It takes some time, but I want you to see the routine so that you can see what it does and that it actually passes all tests. So yeah, all tuning tests passed. Good. Moving on, even the side panels on this unit are in amazing condition, which typically is the Achilles heel for synthesizers because they get dinged up and the sides look terrible after so many years. But on this particular unit, they are virtually museum quality. So there are some very minor blemishes, but nothing spectacular. I mean, given the fact that this thing has been around for 40 years, they are in great shape. Of course, the Oberheim offers MIDI, and your sounds can be saved and recalled from a cassette player. And it offers 2 pedal inputs. Now, the serial on this particular is G44213. This unit is a US model. Let me elaborate on the US and Japanese models. Now, the production of the Xpander and of the Matrix 12 started out in the US and then was farmed out to Japan. And there are two varieties and there are differing opinions as to which one is more desirable. Typically, you will find the opinion that the US version is the more desirable one due to quality issues. However, there are synth experts on various forums that say this is not the case and that the quality of the Japanese models is the same. I cannot say one way or another. I've only had an American, a US made Xpander, actually two US made Xpanders and two Matrix 12s, and I can say that the quality is great. The only technical issue that these things tend to have is the power supply. However, listen closely to this power supply. Can you hear it? No. The reason is it's already been recapped. So it is important to recap your power supply on the Xpander because that is typically an Achilles heel of these units. They need very good power, and for that the caps on the power supply need to be replaced. And once the unit has good power, there's typically no issues. The knobs are very sturdy, they feel great, they ratchet for every position, there's no double triggering, no value skipping or any of that sort. Same for the buttons. They trigger amazingly, they feel very sturdy and should last a very long time. However, there are some replacements available, so in case you own an Oberheim Xpander, I would consider investing in one of those replacement kits. And that pretty much concludes my review of this amazing synthesizer. And by the way, the music that you've been hearing all along was me playing the Oberheim Xpander. And I will conclude by some more pointless noodling and by me saying that I want to thank you for sticking around, watching this video, and I hope that you found some value in it and hopefully some entertainment, maybe both. And if so, I would very much appreciate if you could hit that like button and consider subscribing, because that is how you show and give some feedback to me that what I do has been of some value to you. So if there's something you want to mention, please do let me know in the comments below. I will be active in the comments section. And yeah, so I'll chime out by some more pointless noodling. And I thank you, and I'll be seeing all of you in the next one. Peace out.